Good morning, Don in London. It's April 19th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive around people, places and things. And it took a long while for me to realise that I was an alcoholic. Some say it's denial, some say it's just ignorance, and I had both. I had ignorance because I drank like other people, I thought. And of course, I did when I was out. But when other people went home, I might have stayed on, and when I got home, it didn't stop then. I was a convincing social drinker, and then, behind lace curtains, as some people say, I just kept on drinking, and it was to seek oblivion, relief, anything, just to shut my head down for the night, get some sleep and get back to work the following morning. So it was always about trying to do the right thing. And what I've realised these days, I was driven to drink. I was driven to try and be perfect, be the person you wanted me to be, and I was also driven by just needing another one and another one and another one towards the end. And I couldn't stop, and I didn't know how to, and whilst other people were imploring me to stop, I couldn't. And if they couldn't stop me, how could I stop me? All big questions which needed one simple answer in the end, and it came as a moment of clarity for me. Simply, I could not stop drinking on my own, and I needed help from people who understood what was going on. So what helped me? Well, family, friends, community kept me alive long enough to get that moment of clarity, and afterwards as well, in so many different ways, that it was a galling, terrible experience, not only for me, but for all those people around me. It was harsh, and in the end, I found the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or rather it maybe found me, and it took me a while to get to understand what AA was all about. It was stopping doing what I'd been programmed or hardwired to do from the very start, which was take the first drink and all bets are off. Take the first drink and I cannot stop until I go unconscious. So it's some years now since I had a drink, and if it hadn't been for the fellowship at AA and people in it who shared their experience, strength and hope of how to be sober and what life was like when we are sober, I don't know that I would have made it. But there are other ways, I just haven't found them yet, or found ways which are so convenient to keep me alive, stop drinking and carry on living life sober. So in my videos I talk about Alcoholics Anonymous quite a lot. If I didn't talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, my story would be completely untrue. So whilst I don't speak for AA. No one does. Has no spokespeople, simply because everybody in fellowship is the same sized, equal. That doesn't mean we're the same in all respects. Indeed, we try and value diversity, because it's from the diversity in the program that we get the experience which we can see works for another person, so maybe we can adopt those ways of living as well. But at the same time we keep our freedom of choice to be ourselves, unique and authentic. So these videos include the AA preamble, a few daily readings, and what I think is happening for me today because of them. So I'll start with the AA preamble, which is on this handy little card, available from meetings of AA, where what you see is what you get. And when I say that, it's attraction rather than promotion. So this is not a promotional video. It's just me sharing how my life works in relation to the 12-step program and living life sober today. So the AA preamble reads like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So the only thing that we need to know about AA is if we have a desire to stop drinking because it's completely screwing up our lives, then all we need to do is go listen and see what happens. We don't make a commitment, we don't have to pay anything, and this is what it says. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. So if we have a few pennies to put in the hat to pay the rent for a room, coffee, tea, and especially the literature of the programme, which helps me on a daily basis, it also helps me do these videos, that's what it is for. So you don't have to pay for it, especially if you're on your uppers. When you get to AA, I had nothing by the time I got to AA, absolutely nothing, except a desire to stop, because I didn't want to die in the end. Although along the way I did want to die a lot. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. And in saying that, we all belong to something, affiliations, causes, whatever, faiths, belief systems, you name it, we're all different. But the fellowship only has one purpose, and it says here, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So that's it really. Share the message and stay sober. But it's not that easy, because if you're like me or have a similarity to not being able to stop once started, how do we stop and stay stopped? Well, the Fellowship 12-step program helps me, and although it's called a 12-step program, I live my life with the steps in my head, 12 steps of how to be sober. And it's step 4 in April, simply because this book, Daily Reflections, covers the 12 steps and 12 traditions, one a month. So January was all about being powerless over alcohol, and if we take a drink, life is unmanageable. The February step is all about being restored to sanity by a higher power, whatever that turns out to be for you. Step 3 is all about letting go and letting God, or simply good conscience, depending on your belief system. And now in April, step 4, a fearless moral inventory of ourselves, looking at our assets and liabilities. And the simple way we do that is to say, okay, over the last X number of years that we've been alive that we can remember in our drinking days, what caused us anger and resentments? It's called a grudge list by some people, and it reflects what it was that made us angry and resentful. So from that list we can then pick out what is it that makes life work, our assets, and what made life pretty impossible, our liabilities or defects of character. So my primary 3 defects of character, and then I can divide it up into 1,000 different ways depending on how I feel, are fear, putting on a brave face, and ego in the sense that it's very brittle, and once you get through my ego, disaster happens, because I have no defence against whatever it is that makes me angry or resentful. And primarily it was fear of people, places and things, fear of not fitting in, not being included, fear that people would judge me harshly, that I wouldn't have the right things, I wouldn't be in the right place. And that applied to my social life and my career. So I strived to impossible standards for myself in work and in relationships. So they say romance and finance are the primary causes of relapse. Often they are. Either our financial situation is so bad that we don't know what to do, or it's so good that we want to celebrate it. And then again with romance, same again. We have no romance, so we feel depressed, fearful, anxious, or we have so much romance we get so happy we think a drink might be a good idea too. And we can go in between the two in quick fashion, just like we did all our lives. So what the 12 steps do is iron us out, or straighten us out, in a way we can then understand life a little bit better. That everybody has their own rights, their own free choices, and if they choose to be with us or choose to be without us, that is perfectly right for them, and it's also perfectly right for us. So we learn how to stand on our own 2 feet in a different way, which is just the same as anybody else, living in the moment and learning in the moment. So learning for me is humility, to keep on learning life, and that I will keep on making mistakes, as they are called, or as some people call them, learning opportunities. So when I can't get to meetings, and they've been a bit few and far between recently due to physical ailments to do with back problems, and a foot which was broken when I tripped over a curb or a sidewalk, and I caused a pulverizing fracture of my metatarsals. And because of other conditions, it's taken a long time to get to anywhere near healing. So Daily Reflections is a very useful book for me, because if I can't get to a meeting, then it settles me down into the moment of now. And for April 19th, it says here, brothers in our defects, or brothers in our liabilities. The liabilities being fear, brave-facing, and ego for me. As I say, then I can look at 1,000 different words which describe the deficits in my character or my personality. So it says here, we recovered alcoholics are not so much brothers in virtue as we are brothers in our defects and in our common strivings to overcome them. So we can work out what our assets are. We're developing our courage, faith and confidence, and all sorts of other words we could describe ourselves. But we still have these monumental swings, if you like, into fear, putting on a brave face, and ego. That's me. I can't speak for you, I can only speak for me. But they do tend to follow those patterns. And it goes on to say, the identification that one alcoholic has with another is mysterious, spiritual, almost incomprehensible. Well, at the beginning, definitely. Because why on earth would we want to go to AA? It's the very last place we want to go to. Well, as active drinkers, we would hate the idea of giving up, wouldn't we? Which is why it's so difficult for anybody to stick with it, even in the first few days. We are tormented by our past, and the 12 steps are there to get us out of that. It is a new and exciting feeling for me to care for someone. Wait, I've jumped the gun there. I'll start from that first paragraph again. The identification that one alcoholic has with another is mysterious, spiritual, almost incomprehensible, but it is there. I feel it. And this is the point. The steps are about emotional and spiritual well-being. I feel it. Today I feel that I can help people and that they can help me. So I develop the humility to keep on learning. So humility is a good word. It's not a bad word, unless we make it so. It is a new and exciting feeling for me to care for someone else, to care for what they are feeling, hoping for and praying for, to know their sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief, to want to share those feelings, so that someone can have relief. I never knew how to do this, or how to try. I never even cared. The fellowship of AA, and for some people God, or just simply good conscience, is teaching me how to care about others. So by giving it away, we keep it, and that's part of the whole thing for me. If I help other people, but only to the capacity that I can, not to overwhelm myself by trying to prop everybody else up around me, but to be there on a level playing field. That is, I stand shoulder to shoulder with people trying to be sober one day at a time. And the most important part in that reading for me is, it says, to want to share those feelings that someone can have relief. And it's about know their sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief. Sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief. And the most important thing to remember about recovery is we don't skip over any of the feelings that we are experiencing in the moment, because we have them for a really good reason. The feelings we have in the moment, if my feelings match what's happening now, then I know my experience is good, because it means that I'm in the moment. So if it's a horrible situation, horror. If it's a sorrowful situation, sorrow, to the extent that that's reality right now. And then how do we deal with it? Especially grief, especially in our early days, because we're grieving the loss often of our best friend, which was alcohol, and it's now my worst enemy. Or rather, it's my best friend, because if I remind myself, not to put myself down, just to remember what it was like drinking, and what it's like sober, it is a miracle to be able to live life as it is. In the daily readings, which can be any, in this book, as Bill sees it, I'm concentrating on the ones which talk about inventory, or doing the self-appraisal of step 4, assets and liabilities, assets or defects of character. Page 222, who is to blame? At step 4, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where we had been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking and frightened, though a given situation had not been entirely our fault, we often tried to cast the whole blame on the other person involved, or we tried to cast the blame on people, places and things, or that, well, I was just out of it then, I'm so sorry, but you had your part in it and I'm going to look at that rather than look at my part in it. Then it goes on to say, we finally saw that the inventory should be ours, not the other man's, so we admitted our wrongs honestly and we became willing to set these matters straight. So the real devil in the detail when it comes to step 4, doing our own self-appraisal, it can make us experts at uncovering the defects in other people and do their inventory instead of our own. And the whole program is there to straighten out our behaviour and why it happened. And sometimes we can find ourselves in situations which we find intolerable and causes a lot of grief, sometimes instigated by other people, because we don't know how to say no, or we don't realise that we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, with the wrong people, trying to do the right thing. There is every combination, but that simple word no, Gandhi said, an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. Yet, as people, when we're met with a challenge, we often say yes and then work out what to do about it. And sometimes it's, oh no, why did I do this? And here we go again. Because we've said yes to something which is going to cause us a lot of grief. And maybe it's not really good for us. And I know that it was very difficult for me to say no to anything, because if someone said, can you do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to love me? Do you want to be a part of my life? I never really asked myself, do I really want to do this? Is it good for me? How do I feel about that? Why? And what can I do? I didn't really have any assertive skills, and I certainly didn't know how to express a no emphatically rather than a half-hearted yes, because I would say yes emphatically, I'll do that and I'll be a part of, and realise later that it was just storing up trouble for myself, and often ending up in careering about being good but not actually fulfilling maybe what I would like to do. The idea that I would like to do something never really occurred to me. I just thought I would get some sort of satisfaction out of a job well done, and that captured me in the wrong place for many years, and then I drank on it for many years. Anyway, enough for now. At the end of these videos I share the Serenity Prayer, especially when my computer's gone a bit funny over the last few days. Simply, the Serenity Prayer talks to me, or I recite it in my head. No, I feel it in my head. Reciting it is no good. It's what we do about it. It's all about action in the program of living. So that Serenity Prayer, which is all about action, to God or good conscience, as is your understanding. Good conscience, or whatever your higher power is yours, and it must be yours. You can't join in with somebody else's idea just because it seems like a good idea. It's what is emphatically right for us. Beliefs, whatever it is. We find our way to stand on our own 2 feet, respect other people's views and attitudes and beliefs, but get on with sober life for ourselves and finding our own path. That's what serenity is all about. Yeah, I'm glad about that, but it's taken me a long, long time to get there. So to God, good conscience, your higher power as you understand it, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is always just in the moment and just for today. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. my addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive. People, places, things, work, relationships, collecting, materialism, trying to fill a gap inside, that emptiness that was there for a long time, and it was capped over with fear and a bit of ego and a lot of brave facing, stiff upper lip. I was taught to do that. Put on a brave face and have a stiff upper lip. In other words, don't let people in. And the problem is, not letting people in means I stopped learning. I didn't learn too well about life. Well, I did. I learned my thinking abilities very well, how to think about life rather than maybe live life, because living life was fearful, so there was always a boundary in me, not letting people in too close, because if they got too close they could hurt me. And I guess in my childhood there was a lot of hurt about, not realising what it was, because as a kid you only know what you know, and the same applies when we grow up as well. So I applied a great big filter very, very early, and that was alcohol, and it stopped my development, or stunted my development in certain areas of feeling, how to love, be loved, and do something useful, which is to live life in the day. So this is what I do. I'm learning how to be loved, how to love, and do something useful. And it's a question of balance. It's all about balance on a daily basis. And the difficulty is, if we've always learned to do life one way, we are stuck, or we can be at extremes of behaviour. And that's probably what alcohol did. When I wasn't drinking, I was quite fearful, and when I was drinking, I was fearless. To extremes. So my experience of emotion was at extremes of highs and lows. So no real balance in there at all. But these days I just learn how to be included in life, make the choices that are possible, and have friends and connections, and it's pretty darn wonderful, because I don't know from the start of the day to the end of the day how it's all going to turn out. And if I don't expect it to be a certain way, that's life. If I don't expect it to be a certain way, I am open to what might happen, rather than closed down to it either being the way I think it ought to be, or should be, because it's the way it should be. It's more about being the way it is, and how do I fit in, and how do I include myself in what is going on, and be a part of life, just simply family, community, however it turns out. That's the way it is. So recovery has been a real eye-opener. It doesn't mean all the years of drinking, and there were 35 years of drinking, were a nightmare. They weren't. Other than I really understood who I was. I was always trying to be whatever I thought I ought to be. So my thinking was elaborate about a simple thing called life. And people talk about the simple life. Well, life is difficult, but it can be quite simple if we're open to it. So what's helped me most over the last few years be sober? I didn't do it on my own. A fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, was a great big part of the start, and it remains the bedrock of what helps me be included in life today, seeing what life is and how it can be. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a great big part of my story. The anonymity bit is really important. It's a sanctuary to find the truth of who we are. So AA Fellowship, Anonymous, is extremely important. In fact, it's part of the bedrock. How we approach anonymity, like we would with if we were going to a psychiatrist, a counsellor, or a doctor, it's a confidential place to share how we are, find the truth of who we are. So anonymity, sanctuary, and it also provides this wonderful thing called truth, and truth provides our spiritual connection to living. It's not a religious connection as such. Spiritual really is seeing reality as it is, the real life situations. That's spiritual in the moment, right now. So it's not about it being joyful or sad. It's just as it is. It can be joyful or it can be sad as life happens. So reality is spiritual for me. and it's the ability to cope with it. That's what fellowship gives me. So what is AA? I share about it here because it is part of my story. So people who go to AA can pick up and see this video, or it's for people who can't get out and need a bit of encouragement in sharing, or it's for people who know nothing about AA, and I try and provide a balanced view by saying what it is, what is AA, and also sharing some of the readings which are pertinent to the 12-step program of changing our attitude and behaviour to one day sober at a time. So the AA preamble reads like this, and it's said at the beginning of every meeting I go to. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So if you ever get to a meeting, you will hear the voices of many, and I am just one voice, and I don't represent AA. I do not speak for it, never can, never will. I'm just a person who is in recovery sharing how it works for them. So what I say, it doesn't represent AA, it just presents me in recovery. But I couldn't have done it without AA, so if I didn't share about AA, well, where would I be? I would be full of ego, putting on a brave face and saying how wonderful I am, but I'm not. I'm just an ordinary human being. And the last couple of days have been pretty darn good for me, in many respects. That is, understanding where I am today, how I am feeling, why, and what can I do. Just knowing enough, and that's good. So I've been reading from a couple of books. One is called The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, this one, all about the step 4, which is called the Fearless Moral Inventory, being able, 12 steps, 12 months, 12 steps of action to change attitude and behaviour, 12 months, 1 a month. And in the Daily Reflections, this book, it concentrates on step 4. So for April 19th, it talks about brothers in our defects, or as I call them, extremes of character trait. We recovered alcoholics are not so much brothers in virtue as we are brothers in our defects, or extremes of character traits, and in our common strivings to overcome them. The identification that one alcoholic has with another is mysterious, spiritual, almost incomprehensible. Well, for me it's not, it's actually facing reality. But it is there. I feel it. Today I feel that I can help people and they can help me, and that's because we're telling the truth to each other, maybe anonymously in meetings, or confidentiality like we would get at a doctor, counsellor or psychiatrist. It is a new and exciting feeling for me to care for someone, to care for what they are feeling, hoping for, praying for, to know their sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief, to want to share those feelings so that someone can have relief. I never knew how to do this or how to try. I never even cared. The fellowship of AA and God, all good conscience, as you choose to believe, are teaching me how to care about others. And you know, that is so important, caring for others. And it can be a revelation, and it can be quite mysterious. How is it that we could have spent our lives being frightened of our feelings, and then suddenly find that it's okay to feel fear, or joy, or sadness, or love, and be vulnerable, because through vulnerability there is the strength of knowing the truth. That's what fellowship does for me. More on the 4th step another day. So at the end of these videos I will share the serenity prayer to God or good conscience as you come to understand what is working for you and your personal belief system. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference for me is just for today. My videos all about recovery from either substance addiction or behaviour addiction, or and both substance and behaviour addiction. My substance over the years was alcohol. My behaviour, trying to be perfect, never so, workaholic, relationshipaholic, gymaholic, you name it. If I could try to be perfect, I'd have a go. And the reason why, I didn't want to be found out, and I felt less than, and I was fearful of something. So these days, what's made the difference for me is being part of a fellowship, just staying sober one day at a time. So I am a recovering alcoholic, and I go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the preamble which is shared at every meeting I know of in London, of which there are 600 or 700 a week. 600 or 700 a week, so there's quite a few people here trying to keep in recovery. There is a preamble shared at these meetings, and it goes like this: reminding myself always that I don't speak for AA or Alcoholics Anonymous, I speak for myself and what it does for me. That I do use the tools of the program, so I share them with you here as best I can. So the preamble goes like this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So in that last sentence where it says our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, there is nothing like going to meetings of AA, and my videos are no substitute. It might fill a gap if you can't get there, or it might just encourage anybody or everybody to examine where they are with their drinking or any particular behaviour which is out of control. And for me, my drinking got to a point where I couldn't stop. I knew drink was killing me, but at the same time it was providing me with oblivion, so I didn't have to feel or think too deeply about how horrible life had turned out. And you know, once we're in that spiral, downward spiral, we may have feared everything in life before. There is nothing as worse as being hooked and unable to stop doing something which we know is difficult to get over. And if it hadn't been for a moment of clarity for me, where I realised suddenly, after so many years of trying to do it always on my own and trying to be perfect, that I could not do this on my own, this addiction problem. So I guess really my spiritual awakening, if there is such a thing, and I do believe there is, my spiritual awakening was, in the moment, simply realising I cannot do this on my own and I need help. And I turned to professionals, medical people, who helped me get detoxed and put me on a program of recovery. And what's maintained it over the years simply is being in fellowship with other people who have the same malady. So Alcoholics Anonymous has provided me with a safe haven to understand how to live my life again and do it on a daily basis. So it sounds easy, but it's not, because every element, or every, I suppose, atom of our being, having been converted to addict, says, no, I want more, and I need it. So how does it happen? Well, simply, we are all teachable, and we can all learn again if we are able to get over the craving and then move into a place where we can just try and make one day work. And the simple news is that if we can make it work one day, we can add them up, and eventually we start to realise that life is better without the addiction, substance or behaviour, and we can make life work again. And do it by getting continued and, I suppose, constant support from people who know exactly what it's like to be in recovery rather than be in the problem of addiction. And that's why I do these videos, really. It's my morning meditation as much as anything, so there's a benefit for me because it gets me focused on what is going on for me. As you can probably tell, my nose is blocked and I've got a cold. But today, for the first time, I don't actually feel guilty about being ill. And that's a big turnaround, and it's down to not me, but other people saying, you're allowed to be ill, you're allowed to be in recovery. And if it hadn't been for that, I would have gone soldiering on, trying to stop doing something on my own, using my willpower, and it doesn't work. Simply because if we're using our willpower, it means that we're continually fighting a battle. And the gift of sobriety is really surrendering to knowing what the problem is and what the solution is. And the absolute solution is actually being in fellowship for me. and no amount of, I suppose, self-determined will ever worked for me. But you know what? It can work for other people. So whilst not everybody gets into recovery from AA, there are other recovery vehicles available. And on the right-hand side of this video, on the YouTube at least, is a link to aboutalcohol.com, and that will give you an idea of what else can be done to help somebody who's trying to get into recovery. So I share my experience, strength and hope here, and yesterday I threw the toys out of the parameter meeting because I was cut off by another person, and it made me a bit angry, and I realised it's okay to have some anger about and be indignant when people are rude. And I don't know that the person thought they were being rude, so immediately afterwards, having thrown all my toys out of the pram, or picked up my ball and gone home, I realised that my angry outburst about it to people who can do nothing, they're powerless like me, well, that's it. I forgive. I have to forgive me for being angry, and also forgive the other person for stepping on my toes. You know, anger and resentment are the number one offenders when it comes to spiralling back into the problem, getting angry and taking a drink on that. Anyway, it was only a small thing, but you know, for people who have spent a lifetime trying to be the best they can and felt less than, it's very easy to get back into old thinking and feeling. So for me, I just try and do it as best I can. I'm running out of time. I don't realise sometimes how much I go on. As Bill sees it, one of the books I use to share experience, strength and hope, it says here, page 80, debits and credits. Following a gossip binge, we can well ask ourselves these questions. Why did we say what we did? Were we only trying to be helpful and informative, or were we trying to feel superior by confessing the other fellow's sins? Or because of fear and dislike, we were not really aiming to do damage to him? This would be an honest attempt to examine ourselves rather than the other fellow. Inventory taking is not always done in red ink. It's a poor day indeed when we haven't done something right. As a matter of fact, the waking hours are usually well filled with things that are constructive. Good intentions, good thoughts and good acts are there for us to see. Even when we have tried hard and failed, we may chalk that up as one of the greatest credits of all, that we're on the right path. And it's easy to come off the path, as I know. And when we do come off the path, it's a good idea to get back into reality of where life is serene, which is accepting the truth that we can all get angry about something, and then we realise it's just what it is, and let it go. Anyway, for April 19th in this book, Daily Reflections, 1 page a day, I'm just checking the time, I have enough. Brothers in our defects. We recovered alcoholics, not so much brothers in virtue as we are brothers in our defects and in our common strivings to overcome them. The identification that one alcoholic has with another is mysterious, spiritual, almost incomprehensible, but it is there. I feel it. Today I feel that I can help people and that they can help me. It is a new and exciting feeling for me to care for someone, to care that what they are feeling, hoping for, praying for, to know their sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief, to want to share those feelings so that someone can have relief. I never knew how to do this, or how to try. I never even cared. The fellowship of AA and God, all good conscience, are teaching me how to care about others. And that's really truthfully the message which I needed to hear yesterday, but I'm hearing it today. That it's not about me, it's about how I am with the world, and how others are with the world too. And if we can make it a bit smoother for them, then it comes back and makes it smoother for us as well. So forgive and forgive and forgive. So when I say, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and just do it for today, I get the wisdom to know the difference. What more could I ask for?
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, one day at a time. And I don't speak for AA, but I go to AA meetings, and I'm part of that fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous. Saturday morning here, a bit grey, damp, cold, and in prospect 2 meetings of AA today, one at lunchtime and one this evening after 9, so that should be a bit of fun. And one in a place called The Hut, which is at the back of the Remembrance Hall in Flood Street, or Alpha Place, and the other is at Eaton Square at the back of Buckingham Palace. And it sounds all very posh hattish, and actually there is no such thing as a posh hat in AA. We're all the same size, same sort of people, one malady which we share in common, and that's alcoholism and recovery, or being in recovery and a recovering alcoholic. And we believe, I guess, and I can only speak for myself, so it's not the we, it's I believe, that recovery is best faced one day at a time. And why? Well, all I've learned in 51 and a bit years, I don't know where it started, that we can only deal with one moment, and that's this present one, and what we choose to do. And choices enabled by understanding our own mental, emotional, spiritual condition help us deal with whatever may attack us during the day, and that can be fear, it can be too much ego, and putting on a brave face. So when we go out in the world, people won't look at us and think, well, that person's under par. We put on a brave face often, and I do this all the time. It's part of my makeup, and the reason why I put a brave face on is I don't want to explain what's going on inside me often, because it's just too hard. And most people haven't got time, because they also are trying to put on a brave face and get on with life too. So there's a lot of brave facing goes on in this world, and it impacts on cultures, society, civilization, and causes more aggravation than we can possibly imagine. And only those closest to us know the real us, if the real us can get out and share and be a feeling entity. And much of what I've learned over the last few years is the imbalance that we get if we are completely distorted by modern life and what it suggests we may do. And often it's about striving to be good, to be the best, to be perfect. And the good news is nobody's really perfect, and we can only make progress one day at a time. So if we recalibrate our outlook so it's more consistent with people seeing the real us as we really are, we can start to become more confident, we can start to have self-esteem, and we can have some courage to share the truth that we are who we are. Now how hard is that when the answer is society doesn't really want to know that? Society seems driven to be perfect, and we ain't perfect. So a friend of mine, I think they're a friend of mine, and I would like to include them in that category, sent me some links to Gandhi on the website of YouTube, and there's some very interesting stuff out there. And often I say, Gandhi said, God is truth, God is love. And he was a very, very erudite speaker and seemed to have a grasp of what was life about. It's about people, peace, love, all those good things, as well as conflict, because we can't have one without the other. However would we know the difference if we didn't have a full repertoire of skills at our disposal? So I'm a great fan of a lot of what Gandhi said. I'm not so sure I'm a great fan of how things turned out, and I actually think that is true of most people. But you know, society and civilization is moving as it may, and sometimes it's governed well, and often it's governed very badly. So, where am I today? Daily reflections. Yesterday, a really okay sort of day. No hypo, and that's glycemic problems with my diabetes, so there was no hypo. But I know my blood sugars were higher because I had to take sugar on board to make sure I didn't have a problem. I was secretary at the High Noon Eaton Square meeting. That was my last go as temporary, and the incumbent is coming back from their holidays. And I went to a really good meeting last night at Flood Street. It's called the Promises Meeting. And people talk about their life and where it's got to. and how it works right now. And the gift is that we hear people who are new to recovery and people who are wise old faces, called old-timers, who have been around in the fellowship for donkey's years and have been accumulating wisdom like dust. And sometimes they polish it off and give us some nuggets of interesting information. And it's always like that, because people have to learn one day at a time how life can be. There are no set guidelines for living, thank goodness. Anyway, daily reflections for today from this book. It covers each step, each month, and it's step 4, which is about our fearless moral inventory, but it does wander off the point just like I do. So, April 19th, brothers in our defects. We recovered alcoholics are not so much brothers in virtue as we are brothers in our defects, and in our common strivings to overcome them. That's as Bill sees it, page 167. And defects are those qualities which don't serve us so well, like putting on a brave face, ego, and fear. But we need them, because without them we could actually end up quite dead very quickly. He goes on to say, the identification that one alcoholic has for another is mysterious, spiritual, almost incomprehensible, but it is there. I feel it. Today I feel that I can help someone and they can help me. It is a new and exciting feeling for me to care for someone, to care what they are feeling, hoping for, praying for, to know their sadness, joy, horror, sorrow, grief, to want to share those feelings so that someone can have relief. I never knew how to do this, or how to try. I never even cared. The fellowship of AA and God, as God is truth and love, are teaching me how to care about others. And once we start to realise we are not the only one with all these problems and feelings, and trying to make life work just as it is, and often trying to bend it with our will to our outlook, we suddenly find that within the fellowship of AA, for sure, we are just doing what we can to make life work. And it will never be perfect. But what we can be, we can be the best we can be, and share and be a part of, and realise that it's not our way which is the best way. Whatever path works for the collective that we are in society, in the community, in our family, that's what's important, to be a part of the choices of where we are. So it's not all about us. But as Bill sees it, and page 137, it says, going beyond agnosticism. We of agnostic temperament found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us fully to define or comprehend that power, which is God. And that goes for most people, because could we really ever define it? Anyway, many people soberly assure me that man has no better place in the universe than that of another competing organism, fighting his way through life only to perish in the end. Hearing this, I feel that I still prefer to cling to the so-called illusions of religion, which in my own experience has meaningfully told me something very different. And I don't quite understand that phrase, and it's probably the way I've read it, but I'm not going to go back and do it again. But beyond agnosticism is in a place of courage, faith and confidence, I suspect. And as we gain confidence in being right-sized, we can have the confidence of not knowing exactly what God is, or what is the path that will lead us to whatever it is we're looking for. Because it's about now, it's the present moment and making the best of it. And as we develop our wisdom in the moment, then we have a better chance of understanding the next one, and the next one. So wherever our path goes, if we follow truth and love, we're onto a better footing, if you like, than being fearful and wondering and hiding. More later.